What is up, my ninjas? I am STRYDENT, and I am back with a redo of my Joe collection, part one. Uh, what ended up happening to the previous version is that it was showing up unavailable in certain countries because I used some copywritten music. I had made that video right before they got all crazy with, the crackdown, and I had to remove some music at one point, but that didn't change anything. So I figured, you know what? If it's not showing up in some countries, I'm just gonna get rid of it. It's not monetized. I'm gonna just make a new one and use all the right kind of, the music I can legally use and upgrade some of the story so that you guys know what's going on with this team and where I was inspired to come up with some of these ideas and what I actually came up with, because so much has changed with this team. They've evolved a little bit more over the years since my initial creation of them. And a lot of people, I've seen people bite, I've seen people do similar things, quote unquote, all kinds of stuff. And I just want to show you where all that stuff came from. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you a little story. So, what do you get when you cross G.I. Joe with Contra, just a little bit, and Metal Slug? You get Fenris Company. This is my personal creation. I was tired of seeing so many Joe custom teams or Joe customs that were just always vanilla, always not doing anything, always just the same kind of concepts. And I was like, you know what? I have a whole different philosophy on, how I would handle G.I. Joe had it been me, created by me and mine. So I came up with this concept of Fenris Company, the Wolf Gods of War. I was inspired a lot by the craziness of Contra. Obviously, we started with the Joes because these figures are G.I. Joe figures, with the exception of the big dude on the very end. But what I wanted to do is have my own corner of the Joeverse where I go nuts. And these guys essentially would deal with all the stuff that I constantly hear a lot of the fan base complaining that G.I. Joe would not deal with, all the corny Battle Force 2000 shit, with them fighting aliens and stuff. I don't think that part's so far-fetched. It's a threat to the world, you know what I'm saying? It kind of made sense, and we had to defy it, so you needed shit to go with it. But, the point is, that's something they would deal with. Cyborgs, freaking monsters coming up from the depths of the earth, like your Cobra La type shit. That's commonplace for these guys. Going into the future and dealing with crazier threats, freaking Skynet-like threats, things like that. For protecting us from doomsday cults, you name it, as long as it's off the wall and fucking insane, that's what they're here for, and that's what they deal with. Now, keep in mind, these pictures that you're going to see in this video, a lot of them are old. I took these pictures a couple years back when, I was in the process of kind of cultivating what the team would look like, and the designs of each of the characters. But I have included some updated images so you can see what they look like now after several passes and some Marauders love. But overall, I wanted to have my bases covered. I played a shitload of Contra. I like the wild action type games. I played a shitload of Metal Slug, owned all the games, both the arcade versions and the Neo Geo home release versions, and the PS2 versions. I just love that series because of how crazy the situations are that you're putting soldiers in, and then the fact that they have the right gear to allow it to be kind of crazy, but not so crazy to the point where it's just stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like 100% a cartoon. Even though it looks cartoony, it feels like there is danger. The games are difficult. So anyway, what I did was I infused all that into a team of just badass, crazy, archetypical soldiers. And start with me. I am the team leader, and my code name in this universe is Weaponsmith. What I did with him is I wanted a MacGyver type Joe, one that he builds stuff, but he also is active on the on the battlefield, and he's kind of a character who's got kind of a mysterious background, but not the same. He was a ninja. He grew up in the Arashikage Temple. No, Weaponsmith can fight because he's smart. He studied martial arts. You know what I mean? He studied CQC. He builds things because before getting his own team, before becoming more active in the field, he was on the Joe's R&D team. So he was building weapons and such for the Joes, helping modify existing weaponry. Here is his file card if you guys want to check that up. I just had fun making him do all the things I wanted, I wanted to see. And I have a beef with Snake Eyes. I'm so tired of Snake Eyes, so I kind of included that into his story. They've sparred before, and I have KO'd his ass. Anyway, it all started here with the Renegades Ripcord. My wife was like, "That doesn't look like Ripcord," and I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "It looks like you." I'm like, "Yoink." So I used him as the base of my custom. Then I got the Retaliation Joe Troop. I loved that figure so much. It literally inspired this whole thing. I was playing with them, having them hang off of helicopters and jump off of missiles, and I was just doing all kinds of wacky shit because those figures are just so well done. So this figure evolved from the Joe version, which is what you see facing us right now, to the Joe Trooper version, which I wanted to be my own special team, which is what you see right here. And eventually he became this, more of a leader type. And, he went from what you see there to this sexy mofo you see right here. One of the things that I really like about this character is that even though he is a leader, he's not perfect. He's just versed in many small, like a little bit of everything. And it's kind of like how I've learned, things across my 38 years of being alive. I've learned a little bit of many things. So it comes in handy in your regular day-to-day life. And so with him being a kind of a jack of all trades, it helps make him a more well-rounded leader. And it's kind of necessary for the kind of shit I'm going to put these guys through. So every good team's got to have a point man, and Gunman is the point man. Gunman is the second in command. He was created as a kind of a homage to my my best friend growing up. Him and I used to play shitloads of Contra, Forgotten Worlds. I don't think we had discovered Metal Slug back then, but we used to play Streets of Rage all the time, and it was like if I was Ryu, he was Ken. If I was Guile, he was Charlie. You know what I'm saying? If I was, Paul, he was Law, or vice versa. You know what I mean? He was always my road dog. My second in command. So what I did with him is I wanted him to be kind of a modern cowboy. This dude is also good with most firearms, but it's kind of like guns are his mutant power. You get a pistol in his hand, he's going to hit his target. He's going to kill shit, you know what I mean? He's kind of crazy, which easily earns him a spot on this team. There's just like not really that much that he wouldn't do to achieve his goal. So if that means, running in the middle of like or taking on, a suicide mission, homeboy would do it in a heartbeat. He's not, above doing such things. He doesn't really have the kind of regard for self that you should have. I gave him that 6-shooter because I wanted him to have something different from what you see with the regular Joes. And I know Wild Bill has 6 shooters, but I gave him 1 because I wanted him to, pull a Barney Ross every now and then where he just pops out the 6-shooter and just mows motherfuckers down with ridiculous speed. And, when I get, and I'm getting there, when I get to the shorts with him, you'll see what I'm talking about. But homeboy is your quintessential modern day cowboy. He doesn't really have the regard for authority that a lot of people has. He listens to me because we have such a history. We go way back. But when he's in a combat situation, he does what's necessary for things to get done. Here's an image of him when I first came up with the character. I was kind of designing what he would look like before joining Fenris Company, him as a Joe. And so I just used Renegade's Duke as the base, and I put that, made that sticker on his back, called it a day. I like the look. This could be for, like the early days, obviously, but you kind of get that feel when he runs around on his big ass, they call him Goldwing Cruiser. I just dig it. Kind of like if he was in his spare time, he'd just be riding around the United States or riding around whatever country, just righting wrongs, because that's what he does. But yeah, I wanted to have a gunslinger, as one of the main characters. And he fit the bill perfectly because it was very small. And you could also see that on his gear, his web gear, I put a holster for the 6-shooter, for the Colt. But you can really see that I spent a lot of time trying to give each character a defining detail to separate them from the other members of the team, because I did not want to have a bunch of guys that look exactly the same like you typically see with a lot of customs. So this was the first image I did of the bunch of them when I finally gave them a full-on identity. Initially, he just had the second Joe Trooper head, and I was like, nah, that's not going to cut it. But this is what he looks like today. A little bit of Marauder stuff goes a long way. I mean, all I did was give him a hat, the single action army, the Colt, whatever you want to call it. It's a little bit more weathered now because I've played with him, and the silver. I didn't seal the silver, so it started to rub in places, and I love it. It looks so awesome. But initially, the idea was going to be that the team was just going to be Weaponsmith, who at the time was Gunsmith, and Gunman. Then I ran into more Joe Troopers. I found so many of them. And I was like, maybe I could make more of these guys. And I found more heads. And I was like, So I came up with another one of my homeboys. And this is One Shot. He's the team sniper. He is based off of my homeboy Clarion Prime. You've heard him on Off Our Brains and such. Him and I go way back to middle school. Whenever we play Rainbow Six Vegas 2, and even sometimes when we play Ghost Recon, he tends to lag behind and kind of cover everybody. And a lot of times he ends up in the sniper role. So I was like, hey, let's go crazy with this sniper concept. And I figured, that vest with the scarf looks pretty cool, on this Joe Trooper body. So I went crazy with this whole thing. He's got kind of superhuman eyes, Initially, when I came up with this character, you'll notice that he had different gear on. And this is one of the only images I could find, next to this, of course. And the idea was he reluctantly joined. Initially, he didn't really want to be part of it. Then, some things are revealed, and then he's like, shit, I'm actually, I think I'm gonna stick around. So he earns his greens. That's what I call their uniform, the Fenris greens. And you can see the different sniper rifles he's had over time. I've picked them up from different places. You've got the one from Marauders. You've got one from, what was that game called? Crisis 2. And then the other one is a sniper rifle from Halo. And it's modified so that the buttstock is short enough that it sits in his hands against his shoulder the right way. The idea with him is he is your typical action hero type, the silent, he speaks in one-liners. Because if you know Clarion and you listen to him, he's pretty quippy. And I figured, it would be kind of funny if we had a character who essentially almost all his dialogue, especially when he's in the field, would all be quips, kind of like every 80s action hero, the good ones that we grew up watching. And like I said, his skill is superhuman because his sight is just insane. And I want to emphasize that a lot throughout these various shorts and whatnot, because you'll see he uses the least amount of extra gear, just his scope, and it's like a 6 times scope. It's not like or maybe it's a 12 times, and then, going past that, it's all him. But yeah, this was one of the early images I made for him, and you can see him jumping around with Kill Streak, and I kind of came up with them around the same time. But anyway, he's pretty much stayed the same from the early days, the first change I made when he got his greens to now. So yeah, that's one shot. Now every team has to have a Bruiser, and Kill Streak is that guy. His specialty obviously is his, or function is obviously, he's a saboteur, but his secondary specialty is CQC. This dude is a genius when it comes to martial arts. Now, like I said, this is an old picture, so at the end you'll see what he looks like now. But I was using this old balaclava head, as the initial design for him. This guy is like the human ping pong ball. You just see him bouncing off the walls, flipping all over the place, stabbing shit, cutting things. Not that ping pong balls do that, but, he's kinetic as hell. And the idea is, if Yuri Boyka from the Undisputed films was a G.I. Joe, this is what he would be. Now, this dude has a kind of infamous or famous father in my universe, in my Joeverse, and he joined to find out what happened to him, because part of our mission is finding him. Actually, him and One Shot, their dads were part of a big happening that happened years ago that inspired Samuels to create this team as a means to prepare for this crazy thing that might happen. And they're pretty sure it's going to happen, and it deals with aliens and all that craziness. Because like I said, Contra and Metal Slug both revolve around alien invasions lightweight, So yeah, this dude is your badass, hand-to-hand, ridiculously good fighter. I love it, and this is what he looks like now. Like I said earlier, a little Marauders goes a long way. You can already see how much personality a different mask gives him. I might switch it again though. In the years after I made this change with him, I've seen a lot of people use this one too, so I want to still keep him unique. So I might change it again. Next up, we've got Fixit. He's the combat engineer. This dude was based off of a friend of mine, well, his personality at least, a friend of mine growing up. Dude was really confident, but a lot of times he'd fall short. Especially he was overconfident in fighting games, and I used to beat the shit out of him in Street Fighter and Tekken and Samurai Shodown, almost anything we played. So what I wanted to do was have an overconfident character that is good in this area and has to learn the rest of the ropes. And so he's the rookie on our team. That's why you see him wearing completely different gear, but in the background, that's what he looks like, all geared up in his Fenris greens, which eventually happens. And I even took the design a step further in the years afterwards, because like I said, I play with my toys, so like his actual life has progressed since I first did this video. Especially, me and my sons, we get down, man. We really get into it. So anyway, that is Fixit. There's his file card. I wanted him to not be perfect, and like he's a parkour kind of fanatic. That's why in that previous image you saw earlier with him and Killstreak jumping out of windows, you'll see that a lot with him, is him jumping and flipping, and he's confident in his team that they can cover him so he can get from point A to point B using his parkour skills. And it makes things a little bit more exciting. And, one more little detail with him, and something you'll see too is that he carries around that satellite case, or, portable SATCOM. And from that, he's able to, it's modified, of course, because this is my Joeverse, so he hacks into a lot of different systems using that. Initially, I had this piece on his arm that I was going to have kind of able to fit in any kind of like port, like a USB port or whatever, and from that he would gain access, but I figured let's do it the traditional way with old school hacking. And of course, there's the guy who brought them all together, and that is Agent Samuels. Obviously, it's Tommy Lee Jones. That's how I envisioned him. You know, I was like writing down their file cards, and I was imagining him talking about, you know, each character. You know, like I was hearing his voice as I did it. But he used to be a soldier, you know, way back in the day when this big event happened years ago, and it was kind of like the early stages of an invasion. And he saw the dads of the two, you know, One Shot and Kill Street fight off all these guys and then disappear, and then the invasion stopped. It's my little way to kind of play into, you know, the Contra Metal Slug kind of, you know, background. And he figured, since, you know, they're out in the jungle during, you know, what was probably, maybe it was during Vietnam because they're pretty old. They're out in the jungle doing what they're doing, and these things were fighting everybody, that they're going to come back, you know, and he saw them fight them off. He had an idea of what the weaknesses are, so he kind of spent his life getting enough clearance so he could get to a point where he could actually put together a team to stop this oncoming threat. And that was the team initially. I was ready to stop there, but you know, the gift and the curse of having a crazy overactive imagination is that you just keep building up on your ideas. And being an artist as well, a lot of times I'm not content with, you know, my first draft of anything, you know. So I went on to do, you know, images and have them, you know, play with them and have them, you know, go on different adventures and shit. And then I was just like, you know, this is dope, man. This is dope. What would happen if I started seeing the way G.I. Joe is being treated, and I was thinking to myself, what would happen if I was to create my own G.I. Joe? Like, if I was 100% in control of the brand G.I. Joe, you know, and I could call it whatever I want. Would I build off of Fenris Company and then make more characters, heroes and villains and shit? What would I do? So I started just playing more and fleshing out the universe, you know what I mean? And I came up with this whole crazy idea, but I was like, you know what? Let me go back to the Joeverse and have this team operate within the Joeverse for a while, and then I'll actually branch out kind of like a alternate reality version, and I can do all those other ideas. So one of the things I came up with was my homage to the, you know, Robo Joe, who I hate, and that's Steel Wolf, aka Direwolf. He is what's called an Exotrooper. And this is where, you know, I got all crossplay-ish and stuff. I got the John 117 figure from the package. It's a McFarlane figure. I dug this design because even though you can clearly tell it's Master Chief, it could be anyone underneath it. I mean, especially if you get rid of the 117 on his chest. So we made this one based off of Agent O. Agent O is always the heavy whenever we play. So when we're playing Vegas, when we play Ghost Recon, you know, he always is the guy who wants to carry the biggest gun and, you know, lay down heavy fire. And he's a big dude too, so it kind of fits. So I came up with this arc where we discover a special project where the Joes were using this high tech they found from parts unknown and integrating it into these suits in which they would feed the consciousness of the wearer into a system. And the system is what controls the suit. Initially, this is what he looked like, and I ended up turning this into another character, but I'm going to still have his old costume, so when I do flashbacks, it's going to look like that. But he got trapped in his armor, and so that's the shtick. When they first find him, they have to figure out, number one, is he who he says he is? You know, what the fuck is he talking about? Because when they find him and they wake him up, they find him in stasis, or like a cryo sleep. And when he wakes up, he doesn't remember anything. So they have to, he remembers bits and pieces of his history. So they have to figure out, is this a legit thing? Did you know, Hawk know about this shit? You know, what is this? And find out if the project is all shut down. Are there more? who pioneered this tech? Why can't he get out of the suit? What can they do to help him? So I hated Robo Joe, just like a lot of other people. I thought he was stupid. He's so stupid. But the idea was cool. I was a big fan of RoboCop growing up. I watched it at a super early age, and if you've watched my videos about cops, you know how much I love the first RoboCop. So whenever I think of cybernetics and all that craziness, my mind immediately goes there, you know, either there or Terminator. And I always figured, you know, it would be cool to kind of integrate that kind of a storyline into my universe, because once again, a lot of the Joe fans out there, they don't think that that kind of shit is it's viable for the Joe universe. They don't think that it's logical for that to happen in a Joeverse. They expect G.I. Joe to just mimic real life because many of the vehicles are based on real world vehicles and stuff, and the same for some of the guns. So my imagination doesn't stop there. So yeah, this is the Agent O figure. You saw him in the previous version of this. You can see he's actually in the review for Ultimate Duke from Retaliation. That's an Anderson Silva head, but it looks kind of scarily like Agent O. But yeah, that is Steel Wolf. And when he joins the team proper, we've renamed him Dire Wolf. And then that was the team. But then I was like, you know what? I want to make a girl. I need a girl on the team. And I asked my wife, what would she want to do if she was a Joe? And she said she'd want to help, you know, heal folks. I was like, oh, really? So I came up with Safeguard, the team medic. Now, I always make jokes about my wife. She's strong as fuck. I don't understand where this comes from because she's not, like, super muscular or anything. But she's pretty damn strong. There'd be times where we're, like, you know, play fighting her, I'm trying to tickle her or something, and she just grabs my freaking arm. And I mean, I'm pretty damn strong, you know what I mean? Like, I lift, I do all that stuff, you know, I can bench a decent amount. You know, I obviously can bench more than I weigh. I weigh about 230, and I can bench about 350. I just never really gone farther than that. But she can just easily just sometimes remove you from the area. And I'm like, that's that crazy mommy strength. And I kind of played that into her storyline. So her idea is, obviously she's Weaponsmith's girl. And by the end of this, they're married. And the idea is that she wants to make sure that they make it out so that they can settle down and have a regular life. Because even though they understand what they're fighting for, why they're trying to fight to protect us from these ridiculous threats, they don't want to. She doesn't want to do this forever, and neither does Weaponsmith. Some of the other members do, but she's more of the, you know, I'm gonna protect, you know, and make sure I help you guys get through this so that we can, you know, move on with our lives afterwards. So her motivation and her goal line up perfectly, and I figured that's kind of cool. I didn't want to do the generic, you know, she's just a damsel in distress. Nah, she's the cavalry. She can come in and handle business by herself. You know, she's not the, I don't need no man. No, she chose her dude, you know what I mean? And that's the way she is. Now, I made her thicker because I was like, some of these females, most of the females in the Joe line are just too skinny and scrawny. So I wanted her to look more like my wife. My wife is kind of, she's on the thick side, very shapely, which is awesome. You know, so I figured the figure would reflect that. And when we get to her modern look, you can see I just made her look a little bit more tactical. And once again, a little bit of Marauders goes a long fucking way to making her look better. Also, I gave her a Star Wars Black Amidala head. And lastly, there's Boomstick. This character was made up after my homeboy ODC, that's me. We kept talking about different, you know, ideas for characters in the various Joeverses, and I was like, let's try this, you know? And so I had made him this same character. I think he reviewed it or he mentioned it in the video. I made it for him for a birthday, and then I was like, let me make him part of the team, like full on, you know? So this is him on Fenris Company. He is our team's eraser. He is an explosives expert. He blows shit up and it ceases to exist. There's no mistakes, there's no nothing. It is his art. And now, this is the team. Everybody, as I've shown you, they've all evolved. The designs have gotten just a little bit better, a little bit of change. You can see I have different boots, and I actually look like the lead. I'm still wearing my greens, but I got a little bit more shit going on. My armor's a little different, but everyone else, a couple people have the same armor, and then other people have very specialized armor depending on what they do. And I feel like I have a unique team. It's not just me reusing the same body. But it doesn't stop here. The pack, that is our infantry. I also nicknamed them the Gear Breaker unit. These guys are made up of the Retaliation Wave 1 Duke figures base body. Actually, 2 of them are still Dukes. I didn't change their heads, initially at least. What I wanted to do here was, in Contra, there are a couple levels, especially in hardcore, when you do the Alien Wars ending, there's a base that you go through with these soldiers that are just like crazy and they're like acrobatic and shit and they do all this cool stuff. So I wanted to kind of channel that with these guys, except they'd be on the same side as my guys. And they're essentially crazy soldiers, really good, just not as good as Fenris Company proper. So if anyone's gonna die, it'll probably be these guys. And at first they were gonna be nameless characters, you know? And then the more I played around with them, I was like, you know what, I can do better than this. So I got some Marauders parts, and then I switched up some things. So this is what they look like now. Each character has a very distinct look, and they have personalities, and now if they do die, it'll feel like something, you know, in a story, because I'll have to go into their personal characters. Now the team loadout, this is important because every arm of the world's various, military forces has specific armament that they use. I wanted Fenris Company not to be any different from that, and I wanted to give them, you know, a loadout that works for the team, but then within the team, I wanted to give them specific weapons so, you know, you could see what they're comfortable using, and it helps further cement their individuality. All these weapons, these assault rifles, came from Marauders Gun Runners. That site specializes in making weapons for your 1/18th scale figures. I would love for them to be a sponsor. Please watch this video, guys, and sponsor me. I would love to show off more of your stuff. I've been showing off your stuff since like I first started doing this. But anyway, I've got 2 different types of rifles. One I think is a SCAR or an M4 or some kind of M16. It's something in that family. And the other one looks like one of the modern AKs. This one right here. I could be wrong. I'm not a gun guy. There's a handful of guns I actually know. Like this is a G18. And I specifically wanted them to have this so they could just spray off. And it's a handgun. I know they sometimes overheat, but in this world, it's perfect because you could have it set on single shot or fully auto. I carry 2 Chris's because since I have different armor, the backpack fits me differently. So I have my knife, my 2 Vector Chris's instead of having all the gear that you see on your typical backpacks. I still have a backpack. I just can't. I didn't want to have my character stuck using only the gear that the Joe Troopers came from. I wanted to add to that to give him more character so you can tell this is the lead, this is the rest of the pack, so to speak. So I think it came out pretty cool, you know. They have their individuality. Some people still have their beef-eaters in there, and then other people like me, you'll see I have my 2 Glocks, they're in there, the G18s, they're in the back. Nestled away perfectly. I love it. And last but not least, we have Arclight. He is the team's pilot. He's a combat pilot, Chinese combat pilot. I don't know why I had a brain freeze for a second. Pretty much this dude is just out of his mind. He's an ornery son of a bitch. He doesn't want to talk to people. He just wants to fly. That's card. I like the idea of having a dude who can fly everything. He can fly helicopters. He can fly fixed wing. He just whatever. As long as he's flying, he is at home. This picture, man, like I told you, these are old pictures, so you can tell when you look at my modern stuff how much better I've become over the years, because the background is in focus and he's in the foreground and he's not in focus. Anyway, the idea with him is that I wanted a crazy pilot to pilot our main craft. He also was a paratrooper ahead of time. So, and I should have probably included that, but it was an idea that popped up later on, because this is about the third design for this character. The first time he just had a standard green uniform. Then I was like, you know what? I hate Retaliation Airborne because of the mask. I was like, let me try this, and I like this head on that body. And then I was just like, let me give him all that stuff because I still have an Airborne for my standard Joe team, you know? He's kind of a kit bash, but it's a Rise of Cobra-ish figure. But anyway, this right here, though, it's Retaliation Airborne with Hardmaster's head. But he pilots our big-ass airbase, the Morro. Now, if you've seen the review of this, you know I love this thing with a passion. I had to get this and the Rainfire for my Cobra Troopers. This here I wanted to use as their primary air base, and you know, for the sake of the universe it's in, this thing is going to be huge. It's going to be oversized compared to the size that the B-25 actually was. But it's going to either get destroyed or sacrificed in some kind of way in battle, and then we're going to upgrade to the Cerberus. I know previously I called it the Wyvern, but you know, I've been cultivating my knowledge of, you know, various wolf gods and wolf-related, you know, beasts and such. And I think Cerberus is cool because this thing actually has 3 ships making up the big ship itself. It's one of those things that I repurposed, and I'm really glad I did because it's so unique. You're never going to see that anywhere else. Next, we have the Kerberos Fast Assault Tank. This is a little KO tank that I found very early in my collecting G.I. Joe, and it's from Chap May. And I just dig the design. It looks small, it looks fast, it looks very powerful, and I like having them hang off of it, and it's reminiscent of Metal Slug, and I love that. So one of the ideas that I had initially was that we always take on things and our gear is not necessarily the biggest, most, you know, bombastic gear. It'll be kind of, you know, middle of the road, you know, and we just do really cool shit with our gear. And this tank, being that it's a KO tank, it's small, it's maneuverable, but it's got a powerful cannon, so that will pack all the punch to make up for the lack of size, you know, that this tank has. Another weapon, and I like too that almost all of us could fit on it, you know. Another weapon we have is the Morrigan. It's our experimental ATV. This thing has a gravity drive or an anti-gravity drive so that I can make it kind of drive on walls and, you know, drive on ceilings to dodge all the crazy shit. Because like I said, Contra and Metal Slug, you know, if you've played those games, there's those stages where you're in a vehicle and you gotta stick to the ceiling or you gotta loop around or something, and I figured based on the way this thing, you know, turns and moves, it'd be awesome if it just didn't work the way that a standard, you know, car would work, especially since it's so seemingly exposed. So it's got Vulcan cannons on the front, and it's got these special wheels. They're going to be armored wheels, so you can't just pop them, but you could destroy the axles, you know, if you could get past the AT field. So they look like they're exposed, but in reality, you know, or in universe, they're not. There is an AT field created around the vehicle so that they can move quickly through, you know, gunfire, and they can also reflect gunfire too. But there'll be some kind of in-universe weakness to it. Maybe it can't take too much gunfire, or you weaken the cells that power the AT field. thus leaving the driver and the vehicle open for, you know, damage. But it's going to be such an agile vehicle that it's going to be hard to hit even if it didn't have armor, you know? And I'll make sure that that comes into play at some point. We've already played this stuff out, you know, with the actual toys when we were, you know, just playing, being big kids, you know, because it's fun to do that shit. But I dug this. It came from Tron Legacy. I actually used a lot of stuff from Tron Legacy. And one of the things I didn't even put in this video, but you will see it later on. Next up, I love that picture. I just love it. It's such a nice picture. I got the light perfect. This here is, you know it as the P90 Warhawk in my universe. It's called the Beowulf. It is an upgraded P40 Warhawk. Those guns and all that stuff, we call them Vulcan cannons, the missiles, then there's Vulcan cannons on both wings. The Vulcan is usually what you have if you play old school side-scrolling shoot-em-ups or shooters. And there was a game called 19XX or 1942. I think it was 19XX. But there's a lot of games like that, like R-Type and Raiden and all those other games where you're a plane and you're flying and you get these crazy upgrades that you fire billions of missiles and lasers. And just imagine that coming from this. That's the upgrade that we've given it. And this thing is going to be, you know, just a monster in the air. The thing is, Arclight feels more comfortable in this style of plane than he does in a modern, you know, all the bells and whistles fighter jet. And with the upgrades, he can do some things with it that standard fighter jets cannot do, which is kind of a callback to, you know, the era, but it also shows what kind of a pilot he is. So that was the idea with that, you know, and plus it's also a homage to, you know, those old shooters that I played way too much of growing up. I want that kind of feel, and I figured, you know, that's exactly what I'm going to do with this. And I just love this plane. I mean, if you get this plane in your hands, you'll see what I'm talking about. Next up, we have our bikes. This here is the high-speed combat cycle prototype. Just think of this one as a fast armored vehicle. It's pretty heavy, and it's not as fast as the second cycle, which is called the Obsidian high-speed combat cycle. This thing is fucking nuts. The idea with this one is that it drives at the speed like what you saw back in the day in, well, I shouldn't say back in the day, but like what you saw in Tron Legacy. Just imagine something like that running around on the streets, dodging enemy gunfire, dodging missiles, you know, all that crazy shit. That's what this is for. And I created it for a very specific reason. Hopefully sometime soon I will get to show you that specific reason, but these two bikes are bikes that I created. Most of these vehicles I did the upgrading myself. Well, Weaponsmith did the upgrading himself, so it's a throwback to what he used to do when he was kind of first brought on board with the G.I. Joe team. I figured you don't see anybody using the things that I'm using, you know, in the capacity that I use them in. So it was important for me to find vehicles that haven't received this kind of love. And this is one of those vehicles. I don't understand why this is, because it's such a badass vehicle, but it is. And I feel like these vehicles should be paid attention to. I got these on clearance. I got all the bikes on clearance. They're about $4 or $5 a piece. Maybe one of them was $8 or something like that. I can't remember. It's been so long. But I just know they were cheap. So I just bought them all up, and I was waiting for the opportunity to use them for something, because initially they were going to be bad guy vehicles. And they became Fenris Company stuff. So, and all the lights and sounds still work. So it definitely has I've gotten my money's worth out of using this motorcycle. I don't know. It's one of those finds that kind of makes the crossplay so easy, because it just you look at it and it screams speed, and it's like, yep, that's what it's going to be. Now, lastly is our main attack vehicle, and that is the Anubis Ultimate Attack ATV. Now, this vehicle in universe, Weaponsmith designed this to be the ultimate attack vehicle, just like the name says. Maximum output with all these heavy and light weapons. It's very fast, very durable, heavily armored. It's like a battering ram with like a jet engine behind it. You know what I mean? So it's fast, it's powerful. It just doesn't have the gravity drive. But just about anything we can throw at this, it could handle if the driver is capable. And hey, I'm driving it, so guess what? I'm capable. So this is the one you'll see us using the most. And I love it. Chap May, man, I'm telling you, you can't go wrong with some of this stuff. It's just beautiful. But, you know, that is it for the Fenris company proper. It's just amazing to me, though, how this figure was so awesome to me that it inspired all of what you just saw. Every now and then, I'm telling you, in the strangest places, Hasbro would pull out these wonders, the G.I. Joe brand. And it almost makes you wonder, is a lot of the success accidental, or are they really onto something? Because, I mean, it's been a long time since we got a figure as good as this. I think this is the best troop builder they've done. And there's so many options, so many ways to use it, and so much detail that just makes this thing kind of take on a life of its own. And you can go in so many different directions with it. So I'm just really super happy to have this guy and to have come across this guy when I did, because it opened up the world of possibilities for me. I mean, I probably would have found a way to do this with other figures, but I think this made them more unique because in many ways, these guys are pretty much blank slates for you to do whatever you want to do with them. And I damn sure did that damn thing. All right, now for some threats and some others, some unknowns. A bunch of these guys I've shown you before. A couple of them are more so unknowns. They're good. I mean, you see General Ray there. He's a good guy, but I have a twist. This guy here is one of the main baddies. This is Abaddon. He is in charge of a huge terrorist organization called Deadlock, and this is his right hand. We call him the Ferret right now because he's going to be like a super hyper agile, you know, assassin type. There is an old school sniper, and you know, his importance will be revealed later. I might have already revealed actually what his importance was. Like I said earlier, that's General Ray. This guy here is another old timer whose importance will be revealed later. And of course, lastly, we have Alpha Wolf. You guys know who Alpha Wolf is. He pretty much was the you know, the precursor to Fenris Company. It's pretty much a one-man show. Next up, this is going to be the group that in their first outing you're going to see Fenris Company go up against. It's a bunch of mercs. I know they were in the previous one because essentially I just took a lot of my footage from my previous video and just threw it back in here. You see Storm Rider, Major Blood, a Exo Trooper, Shadow Tracker, and Ghost. These guys essentially were hired to take out Fenris Company. I came up with a custom Major Blood that is so much better than this one. This was my initial idea, but in a second you'll see the custom Major Blood. I don't know why I didn't show that picture here. Oh, you'll see him in the very last picture. But the idea with them is that since they're all from parts unknown and they're all like crazy, you're going to have a different type of combat that you normally don't get from your typical Cobras versus your Joes. Also, the big guy you see up top with the two guns and the goatee is a clone of Major Blood, but he treats him as his son. A clone that broke out, the Major Blood has been raising him, and essentially I have this idea that Cobra High Command, they're all cloned and they've got several clone bodies. So that if anything happens to them, they've previously downloaded their, you know, brain patterns, their brain data, if you will, into some crazy contraption, there's the custom Major Blood. And if they get, mortally wounded, you can just put that information into the new body. And essentially they, through some crazy sci-fi explanation, which I could get to later, they come back to life and continue where they left off. So as you notice, there's two, you just saw two different Major Bloods and you saw a clone, so, you can put two and two together. This here is going to be one of the, he was going to be their answer to Kill Streak, so I'm still trying to figure out if I want to do that. But they are led by the villainous Shadow Tracker, and I think that's going to be fun. Shadow Tracker is also going to be in the video I'm working on right now. But lucky for us, we've got Fenris Company to handle those kind of threats and others that I haven't gotten to yet. So, keep an eye out for those. Now I just want to show you the logo's progression so you can see that, some work went into this design, because like I said, this was my idea of making my answer to G.I. Joe. I just happen to be using the Joe figures as a base. But I love it, It's kind of awesome the way things take shape. If you enjoyed what you saw, please give it a like, a share, let your friends know. Check me out on social media. All the links are in the description. And if you really want to help me out big time, jump on Patreon and support the channel. Every little bit helps, the smallest amount to the largest amount. And last but not least, check out my comic, War of the Gods. Issue 2 is on sale now on Indie Planet. And the links are in the description. It's some superhero fun. And as a smaller independent book, it needs all the views, all the eyes on it as possible. So check it out, show it to your friends. Every view helps greatly. And yeah, that's it for me. Thanks again.